Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Do we have more people waiting?
No.
I was on the Dean Valley debate and hopped off.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe others did the same. It started at 6:30.
Yeah, got it going on another computer and not too far away. Cat's watching it.
Great. Valley just admitted that she's always been remorseful that she evicted people.
Yeah.
Which
so
is a very different than what she said last time.
Maybe she can talk about how she shouldn't have talked about those people that way.
Yeah, there's
exactly.
Evan. Evan is our first speaker.
Great.
Hi, Evan. Thanks for showing up.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all.
Good to see you. So we're waiting to get a few more people to show, I think. I'm not the one in charge, but I am the contact that got you here. So thank you for showing up.
Happy to be here. I hope you're all doing well. I can be brief and talk about Prop 18 if that works for you.
Yeah. Let's give it a few minutes since I'm not the host. Let the host run the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Our president isn't on the phone yet. We were just saying that the supervisors are having a debate right now, so it's possible that a few people were on that call.
Well, this is 26 days away, isn't it?
Yes. Okay, so is it possible Tess is on a different link because she just sent an email?
Tess is on. She just got on.
Okay, great. Terrific. Hey, Tess. You're on mute. Tess, are you trying to talk with us because you're on mute? Great. You're off mute now. I can see you are off mute.
Well, I can't see you yet.
Okay.
I closed out of the screen thinking that I might have to go back in again.
Okay. We can see you and hear you both if you want to start.
I see. Richard can't get in.
Richard's on the phone.
Oh, okay.
I'm in.
You're in. Okay.
I'm in. Evan Lowe is here, Assemblyman
Okay,
Lowe.
that's wonderful. Okay. Well,
I just got home, so.
Welcome to the Haight-Ashbury Neighborhood Council General Meeting for October. And I'm Tess Wilborn, current president. We have our first guest. Tonight we're going to be talking about state propositions. And we'll also go over our HANC's recommendations and introduce the slate for the November election. If you haven't renewed your membership, this might be a good time to do it. Our first guest this evening is Assemblyman Evan Lowe. And he's going to talk with us about why we should vote yes on Prop 18, letting 17-year-olds vote.
Hello, good evening. Good to see all of you. Thanks so very much for having me. Hello from the South Bay and not too far away from Campbell. But this is in support of Proposition 18, a piece of legislation that I worked on with some of our other colleagues, bipartisan support, to encourage civic participation and voter engagement, to allow for those who are 18 years of age by the general election to also cast a ballot and vote in a primary election. This would be then, of course, the 17-and-a-half-year-olds. You might think that we are, this might be in the forefront of things, but 18 other states, many of them red states, already permit this as law already. So we're actually behind the game here. This, again, is to encourage that young people, high school students, we instill a lifelong sense of voting and to encourage as much participation as possible, perhaps even encouraging the next generation of public servants, to which you'll see candidates and perhaps elected officials going to high school campuses and holding town halls to issues relevant to young people, as we've seen the issues of climate change impacting younger people disproportionately, and that of access to housing, access to healthcare, safe schools with respect to firearms. These are all the issues that they care about. On the flip side too, some of the arguments in opposition is the definition of adulthood, which is subjective, and that some of the arguments are from some parents who say, Mr. Lowe, have you ever met a 17-year-old? Can I introduce you to my son or daughter and see what their frame of mind is at this point in time? But what we want to say is we recognize that there are daring opinions about the definition of adulthood. But again, this provides an opportunity for those who are already be 18 years of age to also participate, versus many of them are in a state of transition when they graduate or go off to college and or serve as well. So an opportunity, again, for us to instill a visual sense of voting at a younger age so that we can encourage as much participation as possible. This is supported by the San Francisco Chronicle, the LA Times, the Sacramento Bee, San Diego Tribune, and also the California League of Women Voters, the Sierra Club, and also the California League of Conservation Voters as well. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Assemblyman. Are there any questions about this measure?
I just thought it's interesting. It's the second time I've heard a presentation on this measure, and I hadn't heard the point that if people are getting registered when they're in high school, they're more likely to be voting adult because they're already, you know, kind of been introduced to the process. And I just hadn't heard that as a talking point. And I was kind of curious, how important is that, do you think, to supporting this measure?
Yeah, thank you for the question. With the question more along the lines of civic engagement while we have them captured in the classroom? Yes.
And also just the whole registration process, which is, you know, not everyone is got a driver's license, for example.
Yes, yes. So maybe some other context too. The state of California, we have been in the direction, headed in the direction to increase access to the ballot box, to lower barriers to entry, but to encourage as much participation as possible. And so what that means is an opportunity for us to focus on some of these things, which is automated voter registration at the DMV at 16 and 17 years old. So the state of California, we have automated voter registration at 16 and 17. We have prepaid posters on absentee ballots. We have same-day registration. We have proposals for election day holiday. Whereas in other states, they're looking at increasing barriers to entry, like voter ID laws. So the focus that we've had is to increase participation. And when we think about the mindset when high school students, the issue might not be relevant to them, being taught what a ballot is or actually how to fill out a ballot. What is a argument in support or in opposition? And what does an open space person do? What is a board of supervisor? What do they supervise? How are they elected? how is it governed? So we're very hopeful that, again, this measure, the impetus for this came from bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats supported this in the legislature to encourage us to instill this sense of voting while still captured in the classroom, to be taught on what a ballot is and how our system of democracy works.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating.
Sure.
Are there other questions?
Where is the main opposition coming from?
Yeah, there is no major opposition. Thank you for that question. This is currently polling at 47%, but part of the challenge that exists is when a voter reads the definition or the actual ballot itself, we reference it as title and summary. When they read it, it says, do you wish to permit 17-year-olds to vote in primary elections? And so the gut reaction in terms of polling has not been the most successful. Whereas if we reframe it and have an opportunity to educate voters and talking about 18 other states has this in law, and that these individuals will already be 18 years of age, legally 18 years of age by the general election anyway. So I think when we are able to educate and inform around the context of this, it's always helpful, and hopefully will get us to the finish line. But again, no major official opposition.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Are there special ballots? Are there like federal offices that 17-and-a-half-year-olds would not be able to vote for in the primaries?
17-year-olds, should this be passed in law?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they would still be permitted on the federal and state elections. The United States Constitution speaks to that of not lowering it, but not increasing the age of voting.
Great, thank you.
Finally, also the city, I believe City and County of San Francisco has had a proposal of something like this measure at the local level and school board elections at 16. I believe Oakland or North Berkeley is also exploring this at the local level as well. Might there be any other questions for anyone?
Looks like there's not any more questions unless someone else wants to ask one before we wrap it up.
Just a comment, San Francisco does have a ballot measure to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote on, it's in this election, it's Prop G.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and for an opportunity for you to also hold our elected representatives accountable. 26 days away. Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, and this organization endorses the proposition.
Great, thank you so much.
So that was very interesting that Evan was the spokesperson for this major, since he is a assembly member from Campbell City and represents a part of the South Bay and Silicon Valley. Is there a particular reason why he was the spokesperson tonight?
I reached out to the Prop 18 campaign, and that's who they decided to send. I don't know if it had to do with availability or if he's been pretty involved with it.
Got it.
Yeah.
It says he's also the assistant majority whip. So politically on the rise. Went to Harvard school for government. I'm sure that's not the last time we're going to hear from Mr. Lowe.
Well, seems pretty well spoken. So,
He's got that Silicon Valley fast energy.
It gets his name out there to a bunch of potential voters too.
I was thinking the same thing, Karen.
Yeah. You start the sentence, I'll finish it.
did Jess drop off?
I think she did. So can someone take over the meeting? Or I guess I could if no one else wanted to do it.
Sure, go. Yeah, please.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Super. Sure, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the agenda right now. And the next item that we have on our agenda tonight oops, I pulled up the wrong email. Is great. Prop 18, we just talked about. Prop 21, do we have Susan Marsh on the line?
Yes, you do. Good evening. And I apologize for not being visible, but I'm having technical difficulties for my laptop. Nevertheless, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm a member of the a steering committee member of the San Francisco Tenants Union, and I'm here on behalf of Prop 21. Prop 21 is a crucial and important measure in the current context of a situation where over 50% of California's 17 million renters are rent burdened, in which almost 40% of San Francisco's renters are rent burdened and very much at risk of being pushed out permanently by the current COVID crisis. Now, it's a relatively simple measure that does three things, and those are, it allows municipalities to bring more tenants under rent control by updating the cutoff date for rent control. It enables cities such as San Francisco, and this is probably the most important provision for us, to impose moderate vacancy control, and it brings many single-family homes under rent control as well. So let me take this one by one. First of all, the first thing that Prop 21 would do that is key for the entire state and also for us is it would remove the current cutoff date imposed by Costa-Hawkins statewide, that is 1985. Here in San Francisco, as a punitive measure, the cutoff date that was imposed is mid-1979. Instead, it would allow cities to regulate most eligible units, provided that they have a certificate of occupancy that is at least 15 years old. So we would be able to, next year we would be able to regulate anything that is any eligible unit that received a certificate of occupancy before 2007. It's obvious that this would immediately bring many more San Francisco tenants and tenants throughout the state under the protections of rent control and eviction control. There's a separate cutoff date for multiple conducts that have not already been separately alienated of 2001. properties that might otherwise fall under rent control, with a few exceptions, that have a certificate of occupancy that comes after that date, would be exempt, and the owners would be able to set whatever rent they want. The exceptions to that include properties with ongoing severe code violations that have been in place for at least 6 months, and any situation in which a landlord has forced a tenant out without cause or by a large rent increase. So you can see that you can see the importance of this and the value of this right away. The second piece is that it would allow cities to impose vacancy control. This is probably the single most important provision for us here in San Francisco, the one that would allow us to stem and perhaps reverse the tide of gentrification, displacement, and homelessness that we have been suffering. What it would do is it would limit any rent increase upon a unit being vacated to 15% plus the allowable rent increase. This with the goal of allowing landlords to this with the stated goal of allowing landlords to achieve a moderate profit. Of course, this is mainly a political compromise, and let's be honest about that. Now, why is this important? I mean, this is actually key. Let me talk a little bit about Veritas. As you all know, Veritas is an extremely abusive landlord that uses every trick in the book to drive out its long-term elderly and disabled tenants and flip the units to market rate. In their initial I had the honor of helping them to do some research. And I can tell you that in their initial large joint investment with a private equity firm, they boasted in SEC documents of having achieved an annualized turnover in the former Lemby properties of 30.7%. On the formerly controlled units, they achieved rent increases of at least 30%, in some cases 400, in a few cases 465, but most of them were 30%. That would have been impossible under the provisions of this law, and it would remove much of the incentive for such bad actors as Veritas, as Brooklyn Timber, as Mosser, you name it. So that's the second thing that it does, and it would, in the context of the situation, it would probably have, had some form of vacancy control, had this form of vacancy control been in place, we would have been able to avoid much of the disgracement, much of the suffering, much of the rent burdens and homelessness that we see in this town. The third thing it does that's important is that it allows rent control on single-family homes, provided that they do not belong to a physical person who owns one or two units, one or two separate dwelling units. Why is this important? Well, as we all know, after 2008, several very bad actors moved in to snap up foreclosed homes in California, and they did this because, of course, Costa-Hawkins prohibits any rent control at all on single-family homes. We've read about you probably have read about the consequences, about incessant fees, about harassment, about black mold, about spiders, about constant turnover. The incentive for these bad actors to oppress tenants and to engage in these injustices would have disappeared with this. At the same time, this law does not affect homeowners. It does not affect the smallest of the landlords because they are exempt from it. So those are the things that it does. Now, there are a few myths and claims about what it does do that are not true, and I should probably talk about them. First of all, for some reason, the opposition, which is funded by the usual suspects, is claiming that it repeals rent control, that it repeals the anti-rent gouging law, AB 1482, that was passed not last year. There is not one provision in this law that does that. In fact, there would be no need for it because, of course, AB 1482 provides that stronger state protections were in place are controlling. So that's one law. That's one lie about it. It will not cause, it's not likely to continue to cause, it's not likely to cause rental properties to deteriorate. Our fellow tenant activists who have experience fighting landlords in non-rent properties tell us that they are among the worst and most exploitative slumlords on the planet, and for the simple reason that tenants are intimidated by the possibility that the landlord might do anything to get them out and will probably succeed. This is one reason why it's so hard to find why Blackstone and now informally and now Invitation Homes feel free to do what they do. The same applies here in San Francisco. And incidentally, as a side note, I should probably say that Veritas, with its intimidation tactics and harassment tactics, has selectively slumlorded as another tactic for getting its tenants out. I have an entire list. I have an Excel sheet with the list of all of the liens they've received on another set of their properties. Now, how do we know this and why do we know this? Well, tenants felt free to complain in large part because we have rent control and the just cause eviction that goes with it. So, we should bear that in mind. Rent control does not, I'm not sure how many people who are listening to this believe that rent control actually drives the rents on non-controlled units up, but that's not true also. Rent control has a minimal impact on housing production, which in any event, in terms of market rate housing, we really are producing enough in this town. In fact, we have a standing number of around, I'm going to say 11,000 non-market vacancies in this town. We have basically fulfilled our market. Production is not our problem. In fact, there's evidence that rent control actually lowers rents even on non-controlled properties. There was a natural experiment in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where basically once Massachusetts abolished rent control, they did a study. They discovered that after the abolition of rent control, the values of rental properties adjacent to formerly rent control properties actually went up. And this was, of course, because, and they say that, of course, this was a spillover. This was because the owners of previously non-controlled properties were expecting rents to go up in the formerly controlled properties and they were expecting cosmetic repairs, and therefore they were expecting to be able to charge even more rent. So this really is key. This is something that we need as a crucial piece to the solution to our housing crisis in San Francisco. We need to do this in basic justice to tenant and as an act of solidarity for all of the tenants in the state of California, and particularly those who are rent burdened. And it's especially important now in COVID because during the COVID crisis, a significant section of the of the rent burden tenants are actually low-wage workers who in many cases have lost their jobs, who are on the brink, and now COVID is likely to drive them over once our crazy and temporary state protections are finally over. Enabling enabling cities to limit the amount of profit, of additional profit that landlords would be able to achieve by driving these tenants out can help to stem that. So that's basically all I have to say, unless there are questions, which I assume.
I have questions. This is Kristen. You said that the number of units in San Francisco that would fall under rent control will increase significantly. And I was wondering if you could put that in proportions for us, like how many current units are under rent control and how many more additional units would be added?
I don't have those numbers, I'm sorry, but I can get those to you.
Thank you. I think it'd be really interesting to understand how that will shape the housing stock of the city.
Right.
Thank you.
It will take me, yes, I will research that for you.
So I have a question about the 15 years. So if somebody moves into a building that's 13 years old, would the rent controls go into effect once the building became 15 years old till that individual tenant moved out?
No, it would fall under rent control once the certificate of occupancy is 15 years old, and that is a rolling date, but it's attached to the building. It's not attached to the tenant.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments for Susan?
Karen has her hand raised.
Yeah, Karen, you can go ahead.
You can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. My question has to do with enforcement. I'm totally for this measure and I will be voting for it. But let's say it passes, and I hope it passes. Does the city have the capacity to inform all of these people who are renting now, thinking they're not under rent control, and then to somehow enforce it? Will it be enforced only by complaints?
Good question. I think that the city will probably be sending out information materials. I think that all of the tenants groups will be doing a massive outreach program to make sure that people know. There will have to be changes in the operation of the rent. Obviously, there'll have to be changes in the operation of the rent board to accommodate this. But bear in mind, the current rent law is primarily enforced by complaint, almost entirely. That is why we have the right to counsel. That's why we have so many tenant counseling agencies that, in most cases, are partially funded by the city. Not all. We're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I envision that the city will do I envision the city doing outreach, and I envision tenant organizations doing outreach. And then we go as before.
Okay, so the outreach would probably be broad. It wouldn't be that they would be able to identify specific properties and send notices necessarily to those properties. They would have things in the newspaper, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't know what I do. I can't speak as to what the city's plans might be. The assessor's office the city maintains records maintains full records of ownership, of dates of changes in use, of dates when the certificate of occupancy is issued. So the city would have that information, and it's basically it's also accessible to the public and to agencies.
Okay, fingers crossed. Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Susan?
Susan, have we met? Do you live in the neighborhood?
I don't live in the neighborhood. We have
Okay.
met.
Okay. You live nearby. I was gonna say even though I don't see the picture, I recognize the voice. So
We've met through the Dean campaign.
I'm pretty sure I know who you are. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Awesome.
One other quick question. Has there been polling done? Do we know how the likelihood of this passing is at this point?
Hang on just a second. It seems very good. Hang on just a second and I will.
Oh, goody.
It seems like it's leading, but it's going to take all hands on, Jesus, on deck two. Damn it. One issue here is that I'm trying to do this on my phone, so you'll have to bear with me. It's leading. It's not a certain
Good.
thing yet. There's a huge blitz of disinformation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, this would be a real game changer in California and in San Francisco. And it seems like it's been crafted carefully enough as a change from the previous try to possibly make it through. And we could certainly, all of us again who've had neighbors and friends have to leave the city because of landlord move-ins, evictions, or chicanery like Veritas and some of the big companies are known for, will welcome this. Okay, thank you, Susan.
Yes, it will be a game changer, and I hope that you will all give it your active support.
Yes, we have endorsed it. Yes, and so active support is the next thing. All right.
Okay. Please contact us if you need any further information. I'll try and get it
Okay,
for you.
San Francisco Tenants Union.
Okay, and Tess has my personal email.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan.
You have it. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. I'd like to take a moment to go over the HANC officer and board nominations, that the slate that we have prepared, and to also tell you that our nominations are open through the next meeting. A person has to be a member of HANC to be eligible to serve and to nominate other members. And this might be a good time to make sure that your membership is current. I'd like to read the slate, and those who are here, I'd like you to wave or say, turn off your mute button, turn your mute button on, and say hi or something like that. Okay, for president, we are nominating Lisa Aubrey. For vice president, David Wu.
Yay.
For recording secretary, Bruce Wolf. For corresponding secretary, Jim Rhodes. There he's in the bottom row there, or on my screen at least. For treasurer, Kristen Evans.
It will be my pleasure to manage your money again for another year.
Ka-ching.
And for myself, for nominating chair, for membership chair, Richard Ivanhoe.
That's me.
Housing and Land Use Chair Calvin Welch is attending, I think, a 2-year-old's grandchild's birthday party.
Oh, yeah.
Recycling Chair Karen Fishkin.
I'm recycling as we speak.
And we have members at large, Alex Aquino, Jamie Michaels, Shira Noel. There she is, and waving her hands. James Sword and Christian Bass. Christian is that good-looking guy. There he is. Thank you. So we will be having the election at our next meeting. And there's James Sword down there too. So, all right. Thank you all.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah, so the next proposition I think that we are planning to address is Prop 22, repealing the law that the legislature and the governor signed, saying that workers are employees, gig workers are employees. And we're expecting our guest speaker any moment now.
Yeah, I was just going to check in case it's the anonymous phone number. Do we have anyone on the yes or no on 22 campaign on the line yet? Yeah, I guess not. I don't know who the call-in user 1 is, but I don't identify it. We're expecting Christine Lau for the no on 22 campaign. She's not late yet. I told her 7:45.
Right.
And and I did also invite the yes on 22 campaign. They said they would be sending someone, but they did not send a confirmation when I send them the dial-in information, and they did not provide me a name. So I think it's unlikely they're sending someone tonight, but I just wanted to make sure in case somebody is on the line that is there to represent 22.
Well, while we're waiting for a moment, does anybody want to make an announcement or say comment on some kind of current news that would be of interest to our members? There's Claire. So while you're getting present, we're just taking a couple of words if anybody wants to say something of an announcement or another kind of message, brief message.
Well, if no one does, I just am wondering, has anyone seen a no on 22 ad? I have not seen any. I've seen tons of yes. I've not seen one no.
Well, I think we'll let our guest address that one in a moment. Okay. There is so much stuff going on. I hope that all of you are doing your best to keep your energy smooth, make sure you're getting as much sleep as you need, and all the things about washing hands and wearing your smoke mask. Remember that the smoke mask, when the purple air screen says that you got orange air or worse, to switch out of your COVID mask into your smoke mask. You can get them at the hardware stores and they're $1 or $2. Okay, well then Kristen has got reached out to the No on 22 campaign, and we have our guest speaker, Claire Lau. So Claire, if you would unmute yourself and say how you got involved in this.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here. Thank you, Kristen, for inviting me. And it's so great to see so many actually familiar faces. Richard and Tess, we've been in the same spaces. Hi, Kat. Volunteering for various progressive candidates here in San Francisco. So I guess a little bit about my background. I had been a teacher and an artist and got activated by Bernie's first run in 2015 and volunteered a lot, and then co-founded the San Francisco Berniecrats, and then slowly got more and more involved in local San Francisco politics, and ended up working on the Bernie 2020 campaign as the Bay Area director. Worked on Jane Kim's campaign, Tony Kelly's campaign, and more recently, this year, joined the No on Prop 22 campaign because I felt like this was one of the most important issues that we're dealing with right now, because it's not just about fighting Uber and Lyft. It's also about really maintaining workers' rights. And if we let Prop 22 pass, it's going to be a super hurtful to all of the strides in workers' rights we've made here in California, and it's going to have ramifications for the rest of the country and actually around the world. And actually today, as we're speaking, there's a global day of action with 14 other countries doing actions all across the world in solidarity with drivers in California, because Uber has been doing the similar thing as Prop 22 in other countries as well. They've been trying to undermine labor protections and workers' rights everywhere in the world. And so that's why, you know, drivers everywhere else are also seeing this fight in California, Prop 22, as a really important fight for us to, you know, not let them have the opportunity to undermine workers' rights, because then, you know, they're going to be emboldened to keep doing it elsewhere. So I don't know if I should go into some more details about Prop 22. Okay, yeah. So yeah, as someone mentioned earlier, you've probably seen a million of those Yes on 22 ads. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, Instacart, they have spent now $184 million on Prop 22. It is the most of anything that has ever been on the ballot in California, ever. You know, they are completely outspending us. We don't have a fraction of the money that they do. And so obviously we are not able to compete in terms of the airwaves. We do have some ads on TV and some ads online, but we don't have nearly as much money for them to bombard the airwaves as them. The way they're bombarding the airwaves, and they have actually been having in-app ads. So whenever a driver actually tries to work for Lyft and Uber, they open the app and they're asked to click that they will vote yes on Prop 22 before they're allowed to work. And they're doing that in-app ads for all riders who are trying to use the Lyft and Uber apps as well. And so, you know, why are they doing this? Are they really doing this to benefit the workers? Well, so a bit of background, AB 5 was passed last year as a way to protect drivers, and drivers fought for this in order to be reclassifying them from being contractors to employees. And so basically it redefined what makes somebody an employee, especially if they created this ABC test. If somebody is essential to a business and meet other requirements, they should be classified as an employee. And so what Lyft and Uber and these companies are doing is that they're buying themselves a new law and a special exemption from AB 5, saying that they don't need to obey by the rules that everybody else has to obey by, and they don't need to provide paid sick leave, they don't need to provide unemployment insurance, they don't need to provide the healthcare benefits that are provided under state law, they don't need to provide workers' compensation, and all of this they're doing during the pandemic to increase their bottom line. And so they've spent a huge amount of money on this, obviously, and there's a lot of very deceptive message that is out there, as you've seen in the ads. They claim that Prop 22 will provide like some minimum earnings of $16.80 an hour, but a research in UC Berkeley found that actually drivers could be paid as low as $5.64 an hour when you account for all of the out-of-pocket costs and all of the lack of basic benefits, and most importantly, the time that they're spent driving but not counted as actively serving a customer. They want to only count drivers as actively serving a customer when they're driving to a customer or when they have a customer in their car, but all of the time that they're spent waiting, or they drive to somebody and somebody cancels, you know, they don't get paid for any of that. And that actually then also links to their deceptive messaging about health insurance. They say that they will, if a driver drives for at least 25 hours a week, they will pay up to 85%, 82% of the bare bones, minimum healthcare coverage under Healthy California or Covered California. But the problem with that is under their calculations, in order to qualify for those 25 hours of driving to have health insurance, the driver really has to drive for 39 hours because about 20 minutes to every hour that they're driving, it's not counted as actively serving a customer. Other deceptive messaging, around like safety and sexual harassment, Uber and Lyft are already required to conduct criminal background checks. So they're not really adding anything. And through Prop 22, they actually would be exempted. They don't need to provide sexual harassment trainings to all of their drivers anymore because they're not employees. Normally, all employers have to provide sexual harassment trainings to their employees. And if they really want to like increase safety and all of these protections, like they don't need Prop 22 to do it. They can like do that right now. And then the most important thing that you hear in all of the ads that they keep repeating and repeating is that flexibility. Like most drivers, they drive, they have multiple jobs, they have kids, they go to school, and they only drive a few hours a week. Well, a study in UC Santa Cruz found that 70% of drivers drive at least 30 hours a week. 50% of them drive at least 40 hours a week. So it's not the majority drive, a couple hours a week here and there. And there's no actual state law that prevents a company from providing flexibility and employee benefits. So as an example, I used to be a substitute teacher for a private school. And I was paid as an employee, part-time employee, and I could choose whenever I wanted to work. I could go to work for 1 day a month while I was busy with other things, or I could work for 5 days a week. And I still had access to, paid sick leave. I still had unemployment insurance. And actually, for myself, last year I was teaching part-time as a substitute teacher, and I was working as a contractor teaching art classes. And after that, I worked on the Bernie campaign when it folded, and I was unemployed and COVID hit. The job where I was paid as an employee part-time, the substitute teacher job that gave me flexibility, was the one that paid into my unemployment insurance. The job as a contractor that actually, was the main source of my income at that time did not pay into unemployment insurance. So you see that there's a tangible difference there as to whether an employer actually pays into unemployment insurance for when people are hurting and are out of jobs. And a study by the University of California found that if Uber and Lyft had been treating their drivers as employees and had been paying into unemployment insurance, they would have, over the past 5 years, they would have paid $413 million into the state's unemployment insurance funds. But instead, of course, they didn't pay any of that. And now all of the taxpayers have to basically pick up the slack when we have mass unemployment in our state. So we taxpayers are basically, helping to bail out these companies because they refuse to provide their workers basic benefits. And of course, a lot of drivers are out of work right now. And then just to, you probably already, have a sense of this, but just to say like who's on the no side, we are of course supported and the campaign is mostly funded by labor organizations. So California Labor Federation, Transport Workers Union of America, SEIU, California Federation of Teachers, and the California Democratic Party has come out against Prop 22, and we have well over 100 local electeds in California, and Biden, Harris, and Warren all came out against Prop 22 as well. So I guess I'll pause there and welcome to any questions.
I have a quick question. This is Kristen. I think one of the ads that I received in the mail said that 80% or more of their drivers supported the passage of 22. And I was wondering if you could say how they can make that claim.
Yeah, I mean, they're making that claim because they have been deceiving drivers into thinking that drivers will just lose their flexibility under the employee model. So they're telling drivers, you're going to lose your flexibility. You're not going to be able to choose when to work. You're not going to be able to, keep your current way of being employed, and you're going to have all of these limitations, and that's why, and we know that you want to only work when you can, and so vote for yes for Prop 22. So they've been very deceiving in their messaging from the very start, and a lot of drivers are buying into their lies and saying that they will completely, not be able to choose their own hours. So, yeah, there's no way for us to know exactly how many drivers are, supporting Prop 22. They have a good way of doing it because they're actually making drivers, they're asking them to say that they're voting for Prop 22 before they can even work on the app. So we don't know if all of these drivers are actually supporting 22. We know that some drivers are also afraid of saying that they're going to vote no because they're afraid of their accounts being deactivated. And then, some of them do, unfortunately are buying into their narrative that they won't be able to keep their flexibility if Prop 22 doesn't pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions and comments? Yeah, it does seem hard to believe that if a worker was given the information that they could have health care, that they could have unemployment insurance, but they don't have to take those things. I mean, that especially at this time, it's hard for me to imagine that too many people would really choose as a DoorDash or other gig work to choose to vote no on 22.
Yeah.
So you're in a well underfunded campaign, but let's see. So Christian, you have a comment or question?
Yeah, both. So the first, if they do force the current drivers to actually say that they'd vote yes to actually work, then it's not surprising that 100% of the workers actually said yes, right? Because the only way they can work. So I guess that's where the 80% might come from. But can there be some legal consequences for this type of approach too? I mean, this is really legally questionable, right?
I mean, they have to report their spending. So when they're spending money within their own...
but forcing people to vote for anything. I mean, forcing people to actually vote for, saying they will vote for something to be able to work. That seems to me that this is close to or legally questionable. I mean, very questionable.
Yeah, I think some of our campaign lawyers are looking into this as well, but I'll try to follow up with them. I mean, they're not explicitly saying that, if you say no, you can't work. But I think a lot of drivers feel intimidated, they're afraid of saying no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I see Bruce's hand. Yes.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. I think one of the pitfalls or problems with the initiative process is that any substantive changes or amendments need to go back to the voters.
Yep.
And this is exactly what Uber wants.
Yep.
So they have something that's written in stone that creates a limit for them. And any adjustments that might all of a sudden now these users, these app users are coming up against because Uber decides to change a policy that they've found some loophole or end run around the legislation. So that's why something like this, where it's kind of in a very changing market kind of thing, and it's a market that a lot of people don't really understand yet because it's still kind of new in a way. Not good for a ballot initiative. Very bad, I would say. It's one thing when you talk about rent control, because that affects, a very large class of people. It's like half of California are renters, and it affects their most basic staple. But we have excellent protections for the labor force who are classified as employees. And they actually have more protections than what this legislation would provide. And for some reason, a lot of the folks that are pro 22, all they are thinking about is the flexibility of time. And they're smart people. They know exactly what's going on, but for some reason, that flexibility, they think they're going to lose it. That somehow Uber or Lyft or whatever are going to tell them when they have to work and how they have to work and all of that. And it doesn't have to be that way.
You're absolutely right.
Other questions or comments? Bruce makes a very good point that this is the kind of legislation that we don't want, because it does become law, and it's to make any change means going back to the ballot, and that's not a pretty thing to do. Okay.
Hi, Henny.
Well, okay. Claire, thank you for your excellent job. And I will say that if you have a few extra bucks that you can push towards the No on 22 campaign, I'm sure they could put it to good use.
Yeah, and then we actually have, we're running phone banks right now. I don't know if folks have time, but we found that you may have seen this. There was a poll that came out maybe about 2 weeks ago that showed, this was like before we started having ads out there, but it shows the yes on 22 side having 39%, no on 22 to 36%, and the rest undecided, around 20-something% undecided. But when we have been phone banking with people, we found that it's been like 60 to 80% are voting no on 22. So as soon as we have those conversations with people, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize, they're paying for this and they're just doing this, to exploit their workers for their own bottom lines, I'm going to vote no. And so those are actually really easy phone conversations because it's not a candidate, it's like an issue. And the results have been astounding. And I think we've only had, it's been like maximum 7% yes, and then, 60 to 80% no, voting no. All over California, we've been phone banking. So yes, so I definitely encourage folks to sign up to phone bank if you can. And I'm gonna drop that in the chat here.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you so much for having me.
And the last state proposition that we wanted to consider tonight is one that HANC endorsed, I think, last year, Prop 15, Schools and Communities First.
Excuse me, could you say the contact information for the folks on the phone who don't have chats?
Claire,
Oh, the sign up link for volunteering is tinyurl.com/no-on22volunteer. I can also give you my email address, and you can contact me for any questions. My email address is clairelau63@gmail.com. That is.
Could you spell that exactly?
Yes, yep. That is CLAIRELAU63@gmail.com.
Thank you, Claire, and putting it in the chat for the others who are here too. That's great. So phone banking, a great way to help the No on 22 campaign.
Yes.
All right. So Henny Kelly has been working as an activist in so many campaigns and in so many ways that if you haven't met her yet, you're in for a treat.
Oh dear.
So Prop 15, Schools and Communities First, it seems like this has been a long time coming. And I'll ask you, Henny, to tell us about, HANC has endorsed this measure, but we want everyone to know why it's important and what they can do to help. So take it away.
Well, let's start with what you can do to help. Boy, talk to everybody. Yes on 15 is extremely important. And one of the things that people really don't talk about when they talk about this is to say, you know, the money that we will get from Prop 15 never goes to the state. It comes to the counties, to the cities. And that is, to me, very important, because if you get this $1 billion coming in and it goes into the state, then you have to pull it out of the state. This will come right into us. So it attains protection for single family homes, for apartments, for mobile homes, for assisted living facilities, and for live workspace. It reclaims $12 billion annually for schools and communities. And basically 60% of that goes to community programs, 40% goes to schools. It protects all residential property. You're not going to have any problem with that. It closes commercial and industrial property tax loopholes. It provides small business tax incentives. It ensures strict accountability and transparency. In the Bay Area, it will give us $4.6 billion and $500 million a year for San Francisco. So that money will go to the community. It will go to help seniors, to help workers, and it is our money, and it will come in all the time. Basically, the interesting thing about it is that there is finally going to be we are going to go to 555 California and talk about it, and it's going to be an in-person rally, and I will get you the time and date of that. It's not on my screen right now, but the reason for that is that is a property that is owned by Donald Trump. And that is a property that is getting away with murder. Well, kind of like Donald Trump is in other things. So I'm going to tell you about that, and I will make sure that everybody at HANC gets it, because I'm going to make sure of that. But let me just tell you, basically, Prop 15 will reclaim $5 billion a year for K-12 schools and community colleges, prioritizing funds for school with the highest need. It will reclaim $7 billion a year for critical community services, such as homeless, public transportation, pothole repairs. It will improve public health, increasing funding for healthcare and vital social services. It'll help protect California from wildfires and other natural disasters, increasing funding for firefighters and first responders. And it mandates full transparency and accountability for all revenue. So that's an important thing. It will not affect any seniors who are renters, who are homeowners. It will not raise taxes on homeowners, renters, small business, and agricultural land. It will decrease the tax burden on working families. It will simply put California on par with the way the rest of the country taxes. When we first did Prop 13, basically there was supposed to be a certain amount of money that came from corporations and large companies and large buildings and our buildings that are homes, etc. And right now, what has happened is that the corporations and buildings like 555 California and Chevron and other places are giving us less than 30% of the taxes. And homeowners are giving us 70% of the taxes. We want to change that. We want to make sure that the big corporations are paying their fair share. And one of the reasons is that they don't sell their property as often. But another reason is that you can sell a large or change ownership of a big piece of property and a company and never be reassessed. If I move out of a home and go into another home, I will have to pay a certain amount of extra taxes. My daughter had her children 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, she bought a home. We bought a home in 1976. She is paying 10 times more in taxes than we are because she bought the home 10 years ago instead of 40 years ago or 50 years ago. So what is happening here is that even if they sell the property, if they keep on the board of directors, 50% of the people on the board of directors are the same people, they do not have to change and they are not reevaluated. This law will make, and this proposition will force them every 3 to 5 years to be re-examined and reevaluated. And that will help keep the tax base that we need to run schools and to help community organizations.
Sorry, Henny, I just want to interrupt you just for a brief second. Sure. To let our moderator know that I've gotten a text message that someone has been waiting in the waiting room quite a while, if they can be admitted. Thank you.
I got it.
Are we okay now?
Yeah, it was Jen Snyder.
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, it's supported by community organizations. It's opposed by big business and special interests. Basically, I know the people in HANC, and I would say that you would agree with the people that wrote this. And as a matter of fact, we rewrote it and made it better because what we did was make sure that small businesses got a tax break and that that they had less to worry about than with the first iteration of this. So we're hoping that you can not only vote yes on this, but you can tell everybody you know that they should vote yes on this. This will help them. It will benefit our cities. It will benefit our counties. It will benefit just everything that is happening. It is money that goes directly to the counties, and it is money that will go directly to schools and to places that need the money. And it will help our cities and it will help our state. So, any questions? Because I got answers.
Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
It's Peter Warfield. Hi, Henny. A neighbor of mine said, oh, Prop 15 is terrible for small businesses, and it's going to be a terrible problem for small businesses. This was at a time when I didn't really know anything, so I don't know what exactly she was referring to, or whether businesses are going to be hit in some way really hard if they're small.
If the small businesses, they will not be hit by this. It protects small businesses, and it gives them tax breaks if they, if the building is $3 million or less, or they're, that they will not have to pay anything more. In fact, they will get a tax break. If they are a small business in a mall, they will, not have to, they will get a break also. It is not going to hurt small businesses. That's the one thing that was changed, just to make sure, because we realize that small businesses are important to us. And what we're trying to go after is the people that have really absolutely raised their prices, like Disneyland, and have never had to pay a cent more than they paid in 1978. Never had anything raised on them. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is Kristen Evans. I was just going to build on what you said, Henny, that it's always really unfortunate when they invoke small businesses as the ones being harmed or hurt, because it's so, clearly not small businesses that are making the outcry. It's the biggest corporations and landowners. And small businesses, of course, when they enter into a lease, often will sign a triple net lease that does pass on taxes. But as Henny is saying, there was a lot of consideration in terms of phasing in the taxes as well as the tax breaks in order to not have unintended negative consequences towards small businesses. But always tell your friends before they sign a lease that commercial small businesses don't get, there's no such thing as rent control for small business. I mean, that's right. Another thing that we should have is tenant protections for small businesses. When I signed my first commercial lease, it was about 3 pages long. The last one I signed was about 50 pages long, and a lot of corporate legalese and every thing that the landlord could think to shift in terms of risk, landed in my lease, whether that's ADA improvements or any other cost or fee that might ever be placed on them ever, and forever. So it's important that people not sign triple net leases, and it's also great that this legislation foresaw that potential obstacle to getting it passed.
Okay, yeah, and basically you realize that Prop 15 will put California on par with the way rest of the country taxes commercial property, while keeping the property tax rate at 1%, one of the lowest in the country. It will stop penalizing new businesses by leveling the playing field and taxing all large commercial property at the fair market value. It's, most commercial, as you say, most commercial properties are already assessed at or near market value. But I think it is going to help small businesses, and that was a real thing that we pulled back the proposition and changed it to give them some protections, because you know, they are hurting in this city and they are hurting in this state. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other
So I know
questions?
not on this measure, but I was going to mention that Jen Snyder joined us in case they wanted to hear an update from the supervisor's office.
Yeah, I was just going to text her, but so, okay, we've got to get people out for 15, get people to vote for this. City College and the whole disaster that's going on there. We need the money, the counties and the whole state needs the money. The whole country needs it, really. But thank you very much, Henny. I appreciate your taking time tonight and coming to let us know more about this one.
Okay, you got it. Anytime. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, well, Jen Snyder from our supervisor, Dean Preston's office, let's just check in with her and see if she does have any updates for us or questions.
Hey, everyone. Nice to see you. I was just over at the D5 debate that's happening with the Fillmore Merchant Neighbor Collaborative in Japantown for Justice. And it was a really great discussion, and I can share. Oh, yep. So we've got it on in the background on a couple of these folks. I know that Richard's got it on too over there. So much to do. Election is so soon. But yeah, I can share the link for that, for the recording in the HANC Facebook if you guys are interested. But yeah, so this week was really a very exciting week. As many of you know, we finally worked out a way to get rent control protections for our neighbors at Midtown. Woo! That's been a long time coming, a fight that we have been involved with so many of you guys, so many HANC members for years, starting with just preventing the demolition of their home to now knowing they have a little bit of security, and hopefully in the future we will come to some kind of conclusion on either cooperative or ownership of some kind. The battle continues, but we are so thankful that at least for now they get to stay and at reasonable rents for some of these amazing neighbors over there. And then also you may have seen that we also passed a no-fault eviction ban. The intention is for that to go through the end of the pandemic. So that means like OMIs and construction, stuff like that, so that we're kind of like plugging up all the holes. We really, really, really hate evictions. So yeah, so if you guys think of another kind of eviction, we'll fight it. So those are the two exciting things we've done this week at the board. Of course, lots more stuff, worker protection things or whatever, in upcoming meetings. And in local news, very local to us news, we found out that the Safe Sleeping site will, the official close date that the city has given us at this point is end of November. So that pushes it till the full 6 months. And if the neighborhood wants to have a conversation, I think we're going to convene folks and just have a conversation about what that means, what else we'd like to see. The pandemic's not over. What are our next steps? What are we thinking? So we're going to convene that pretty soon. But yeah, I really enjoyed the CCC meeting with so many of you folks on there as well. And I don't know, I'm always here. I'll throw my cell and my email in the chat for anyone who doesn't have it. I just live over on Haight and Broderick if we haven't met, so neighbor as well.
Yeah, I also thought I would mention an update about camp having about 8 to 10 vacancies. It sounds like they had a number of vets that were able to get a permanent housing placement, and they have some people that are moving on to reunite with some friends and family, and they had been reluctant to fill the vacancies, until they had that confirmation that camp would continue past
Yeah.
October. We now know that it will, as Jen said, continue for sure until November 29th. And specifically, the vacancies, I also got confirmation that they're going to be using them going down the wait list, because they've had I think over 30 people on a wait list. Now, some of those people may have left the area or found other options, but they're going to, use that list and the wait list to fill the vacancies and get people into camp. So that's all positive and good news, is that, those spaces will be put to good use.
Good. Okay. Anything
Can
else?
I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, I just wondered, there was certainly some consternation before the camp went in, and I wondered how the neighborhood had reacted now that people have been living there.
Well, I would say that in terms of the folks living in camp and the way camp's been operating, we've had hardly any complaints whatsoever. I think it's been a great success. I mean, they've cycled over 23 people out into other, permanent housing or with friends, and folks have gotten into nursing school. Folks have gotten jobs. It's just really beautiful what happens when you just give people the stability to kind of like make decisions and have a little agency in their life. So that's been really great. We haven't heard many complaints. Of course, some of the complaints that we've heard is that camp is not big enough to accommodate everyone during this serious crisis. We totally agree.
They want more.
I mean, I would love to give everybody in the neighborhood a safe place to be and get a shower and everything. So I think so these next spots opening up is great. And yeah, I think it's just like another one of those things where we have to, we didn't get to have a lot of talks. We only got to have a few talks before we opened camp because it was obviously an emergency. But now we can have a couple more talks about what do we want to do next, because certainly the pandemic won't be over for a while. But yeah, I think biggest complaints we've gotten so far is folks not being able to fit in to the site yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people don't stop becoming homeless because of a pandemic either. In fact, the opposite happens is, people, domestic abuse rises and people are sick of each other and at tight quarters, that more people can end up and wind up on the street. So yeah, certainly, I've met people that have arrived in the neighborhood because of becoming homeless during the pandemic too. So that's very frustrating, but also, a reality of what happens. So
one other question. When you start, when you're reaching the end at the end of November, before the camp is closed, is there an agreement with the city that people will not just be turned back out on the street, but that there will be some kind of replacement site for people?
So that is part of the discussion that I think we all will want to have. So the commitment that the city gave is that folks who are in the shelter-in-place options, hotels, safe sleeping sites, there's also congregate shelters happening we're I don't even want to say cautiously optimistic. I want to just say we are very fortunate that there has not been any outbreak. The things that they put in place seemed to have stalled outbreaks, and so we are hoping that that continues to be the case. But everybody who is in a place is not supposed to be released to just the street. Now, the folks who are guaranteed to continue to have hotels that they're either going to buy and change them into permanent housing or into the permanent housing are mostly vulnerable folks. That's not the case for the folks at HANC. As you know, we've got a lot of younger folks that are in HANC, as is our population, unhoused population in the Haiti.
You're saying HANC, but I think you mean camp.
Camp, sorry.
Okay.
Yes. So
I also feel that way about HANC members, but that's beside the point.
Yes. I agree. So the question is, what happens to these folks? And if they offer folks congregate, are they going to be interested in taking that? I don't think so. Or maybe so, but and where is that going to be?
Yeah.
This is a neighborhood, and people want to stay in their neighborhood. And so we did fight at the budget for tons of money to go to emergency and permanent housing for TAY. And other and families, but I think a lot of these folks would qualify for the TAY housing. So that's what we're kind of looking at, and we're also looking at, like, do we need to have a replacement safe sleeping site someplace to make sure that folks. The last thing that we all do better when people are not on the street, all of us, and so. We just want to make sure that is not the thing that happens, because if they say, well, we offered them somewhere that we knew they didn't want to take, that's not going to cut it for us. So we're going in. Yeah, I'll tell you guys, sometimes I feel like ever since we got elected, I feel like we're still yelling at the same people that we were yelling at before we got elected. Just say some things are hard to change. So
no, it's frustrating because with Prop C, there's now this stream of money for new emergency shelter options, but then there's also a lot more money for permanent housing solutions, and I'd love to see the city be moving faster on that. So
might be an interesting thing someday to invite the Prop C Oversight Committee to present at HANC and see what they're up to and how it might impact Kate.
I should, that's a good reminder to let everyone know that the the Prop C Oversight Committee is now meeting. And it's not one of the things that you see on the SF.gov TV Board of Supervisors link. It's on the controller's page. But I'm going to start sending it out in case people want to watch it. The first meeting the first meeting was recorded. You can see the members of the Oversight Committee, who they are. As you may recall, half are appointed by the mayor, half are appointed by the Board of Supervisor, with the deciding vote appointed by the controller.
I have a question for you, Jen. With a lot of the issues not disappearing at the end of November, has there been any discussion? I know the city's been working a little bit with the Presidio Trust. There was the site set up there for kind of a triage hospital down in the Presidio. Has there been any engagement with the federal government, GGNRA, or the Presidio Trust? I know there's a lot of potential vacancies. The Fort Mason Center, for example, is going to have like 20,000 square feet vacant. Are you able to talk a little bit about what has been discussed, what dead ends, that sort of thing?
So I haven't heard any discussions about those specific sites, but I do know that they're looking to, instead of building from the ground up places for folks to go, especially with Prop C money and the hotel conversion stuff, they're looking to create them out of like the structures that we already have, a lot of permanent housing. I think it's a great idea. I feel like my mom used to talk to me about the Presidio housing and how like she and her friends, when they were living in San Francisco when she was young, like how they were going to take it over. And I think it's about time. Let's do it. So I'm all for that. And I know we do get a lot of federal reimbursement right now for COVID. 75% of room costs for folks in hotels are reimbursed. And as you may have seen us angry in another committee, they are not, San Francisco is not qualifying vulnerable folks for as vulnerable as people really are, according to the CDC. So like we don't include cancer in there for some reason that we don't know why, and there's a number of other things, COPD and stuff like that. So smoking in general is supposed to be a risk.
It's because Deb Bourne has decided that those things are not as risky, right? It's one person at DPH. It
appears to be kind of like a I think it's about not wanting to spend the extra funding on the 25%. I mean, they also have to pay for staff, and there is a cost to it. But I mean, I just think like I mean, it's like affordable housing and homelessness are the #1 issues in San Francisco since the beginning of all time. So, you know,
at least since the 80s. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like that was the beginning of time for me as a that's where my time began. But yeah, I just think homelessness is one of those things where it's like it's so simple. The answer is in the name. All they need is a home, and they won't be homeless anymore. So yeah, but I think those are great points. And I would love to have re-earth a conversation about what's going on with those public lands and federal lands and why we can't use them. There is probably a reason I don't know, but I'm happy to go.
You know, Jen, this is Bruce. How you doing? I understand also that other departments in the city have property. So, like DPW has a bunch of property. PUC has a bunch of property. You know, and even the school district has a bunch of property, you know, they're not using. And we tend to look at, you know, just some of the, you know, obvious places like Rec and Park, right? You know, because the park has this obvious big swath of land. But there's a lot of other land that the city owns in other departments. And you might want to contact the Department of Real Estate and find out what that is.
Yes, and you know what? On the 26th, if folks want to tune in, we're having a hearing on building 100% affordable on city-owned land and why we don't do more of it and what is the darn holdup. So join us on the 26th for that. That's going to be at GAO.
Oh, GAO. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I'll send out a reminder when we actually get our time and the agenda's made and stuff. But yeah,
Sorry,
I agree, especially for emergency stuff, like, you know.
Jen, did you say that was October or November?
October 26th, I believe.
Thank you.
Yeah, end of the month.
And can we maybe, I think we should kind of move from the label of homeless to people without a home, much of the way we do with people with disabilities.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the disabled, you know, right. That kind of thing.
I agree.
It's a dignity thing.
I also can, I'll call you tomorrow, Bruce, about my chat with Mary Woods.
Thank you.
Great.
Anything else for Jen or?
Just great job. I know you guys are doing a lot, so thank you.
Thank you. We love you guys.
Yeah, that I was gonna say that hearing about the crazy parcel that the developer was trying to get 4 units on was also another recent thing that happened too, that HANC had taken a position on. So
yeah, that inner block. Yeah, well, HANC board voted by email very quickly on Dean's 3 pieces of legislation that were heard on Monday, and I got on the phone and said that we were supporting those 3 pieces of legislation. And I wanted to give a special call out about Prop I, which didn't get in the last voice, is that's one of the ways that we're going to get money to pay for all the things that we want. And Dean has been doing a fantastic job, and I really have to commend all of that work. It must be a lot of work that you and Kyle and everyone is doing too. It doesn't just happen. So that is really beneficial for our city and our neighborhood. Thank you.
Yes, totally. Senior housing can be paid for by Prop I at 730 Stanton. This is a possibility.
Yeah, okay. Other comments, things that people want to say for the good of the order, whether it's on any subject we've touched on or anything else you want to hit before our official closing time in 15 minutes.
I will say that I'm still currently the chair of the Sunshine Task Force until we have the rest of the folks get reappointed. But we did get 3 new appointments. One is a reappointment from the Legal Women Vote. Well, one is from the Society of Professional Journalists. Her name is Lila LaHood. She's the publisher of San Francisco Free Press, a Public Press, and Dean Schmidt, who is their attorney nomination, and he also got appointed, which we desperately needed. And then we have a new person from the League of Women Voters by name of Jennifer Wong, and she's really great. So we're finally getting back to, we've been struggling with just 6 members, which means that, you know, it's, what do they call that? Tyranny of the minority. So if one person votes no, then everything fails. So, so we're getting back in order there.
Sorry, I missed what you said, Bruce. Is that the Sunshine Task Force you said?
Yeah, Sunshine Task Force.
Got it. Thank you.
We're back meeting. We're meeting online. A little weird and difficult, but we had very too long a meeting last night, and it's just getting messed up. Oh, one thing I will mention: the city attorney. Well, it's not our legal counsel that is providing that provides us with that city attorney provides us with has cold turkey just stopped providing us with legal memos. They basically, these are kind of an overview of what each party is bringing to the table, an analysis of that, and then usually they present their advice in the form of a questions that we might ask. But back in March, they said that they were just not going to provide it anymore, period. And not like, we're not going to do it in 3 months or in 6 months. So prepare yourself, they just stopped. So we didn't take up the issue because we weren't meeting until about 3 weeks, probably in July, we started having discussions with them, and they're just digging in their heels. So we are seriously backlogged right now, and all the parties and the task force rely on this document, and they're really pushing it to our administrator, who is completely overworked. She's way too much work. So I've been talking with the clerk, had a meeting with the clerk today. I'm going to have a meeting with Hillary Ronan's office tomorrow. I told Dean about it through Kyle, and so I'll keep you posted on that works. Otherwise, everything's going to stop.
I don't know if Kristen or Jen knows, but I'm curious to know in all the months, many months now that the Safe Sleeping site has been operating, if there have been any complaints about noise or fighting. I mean, I can't imagine fighting, but I mean, I guess there's still that
there really
lawsuit is
hasn't
in process.
Yeah, there really hasn't been tests. I mean, like, I think we were all holding our breath that, you know, there might be some expose video or, you know, like some horrible thing that happened that gave, you know, camp a black eye, but there really hasn't been any of that. You know, obviously the focus has really been on the unsheltered folks that are outside of the camp.
And Shira's here, we can talk about it too, I guess.
Shira, are you available?
Hi, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I lost you for like 5 seconds, but yeah, no, it's been really great. We haven't, I mean, every once in a while we'll get a looky-loo that comes up, but mostly it's been really positive responses from the neighbors that we've seen, at least physically at the site. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of missed the question because I lost you guys for like the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, about whether there have been any formal complaints or police officers coming over or stuff like that.
No, well, yeah, we haven't. I mean, yeah, it's been super chill. And if there was something, we don't allow police officers inside, and we've been able to, yeah, to de-escalate anything internally, which is good. So yeah, yeah, it's been amazing. It's been such an exciting thing to be a part of and to watch grow and yeah, it's really amazing. I hope we're able to get extended past November. Yeah. No formal complaints as far as I know.
Well, that's wonderful. Good news. Good news. Okay. Anything else, gang?
Oh, I was just going to mention that I have given now 2 interviews about Prop H. Hank is apparently the only organized opposition, and so I'm getting. I did an interview with the Chronicle, and I did one with the San Francisco the BizJournal.com. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's, obviously. The reporters are looking for what the no side says, and we're it. So there you go.
That's pretty funny. I thought the article you put for The Voice, you did a really nice recap about the why, kind of the history there.
Thank you.
And I understand that it may also provide you with a little bit of conflict of like which hat am I wearing right now, and
No, and I made it very clear to the reporters, I am answering this as a HANC board member. I don't need you to, specifically identify me in any other way except for this purpose. So, but I was brought up another point for me. There is a survey. Have you seen it? Of from OEWD for our commercial corridor. That we should send out to our membership, that specifically asks for your shopping habits in the Haight commercial corridor, and it asks for specifically businesses that you would like to see brought onto Haight Street, whether that be a pharmacy or a shoe repair or kids toy store, or kids clothing store, or I personally would love like kitchen goods store, so you can fill out the survey. I think it's closing on October 15th, so we should definitely get it out to the membership soon.
Can we ask for a different bank?
Yes. That would be an excellent
Okay.
use of the survey.
You could ask for a credit union too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Excellent use for the survey. So just so you guys know, it was done by a consultant who I talked to that also is the organization that does the Sunday Streets. It's called Livable SF. And I've invited him to our next Merchants Association meeting next week. And we might consider inviting him to a HANC board meeting next week, if you're inclined. So
who's collecting this, and what are they going to do with it, Krista?
OEWD has paid a consultant to do a survey and make recommendations for basically business development in the Haight.
Why just in the Haight as opposed to any other neighborhood?
Valley funded it before she left office, and it was, I think, in part due to the reaction of complaints about vacant storefronts. I read the consultant the Riot Act because he sent out the survey before consulting anyone in the neighborhood, and I said, do you realize that the storefront vacancies are not due to lack of, like I said, the half of the properties aren't even on the market. Like they're it's like the old shoe repair place, the old kids store place, not even being advertised for rent. And I said, so, like that is not the problem with that building. So, you need to also take a close look at like what's happening in the corridor, why there are the vacancies, not just presume that, well, anyway, you guys don't need me to rant about that. So,
what's interesting is we talk a lot about what goes on H Street with regards to the storefronts and also around housing, but nobody knows who the owners are of these.
yeah,
And I think it'd be worthwhile to do like a big profile piece on all the owners.
that's a great idea, actually. So, interestingly enough, Olson, that is a large landowner in the Haight, I've been told has been pretty much incommunicado with his tenants due to a battle with cancer. And so I think there's also the possibility that a significant amount of real estate will be changing hands, whether that'll go to family members, we don't know, right? His niece has been in touch with some of the tenants. And then, of course, you guys know the Brennans are another major landowner. And then the guy that owns Burger Urge's building owns 3 properties on that block.
And there's Michael, right?
That's Michael Sula owns a different set of properties. He's the owner of Pork Store. Right. But the person I was referring to is the one that has the building that had Burger Urge. It used to be, I think they called it Planet Weavers or something like that. That was next to what's now.
Isn't it a liquor store?
A liquor store, right? Exactly. And it's also the old bakery shop that was turned into an import store that is now Body Rock is also his building.
Kristen, the Brennans, I always hear their name, and I'm assuming it's not the same Brennans that live on the 500 block of Ashbury.
So it's my understanding that the Papa Brennan doesn't live in the neighborhood, but the son has been active, and he was involved in the Haight-Ashbury Improvement Association's board, John Brennan Jr. And I believe he may actually live nearby.
Okay. Definitely not Pam and Bruce. But
No.
I can't imagine, but I was just wondering if they're like related somehow.
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe Pam. Brennan is, as you know, probably a pretty common last name.
Yeah.
But no, I don't believe there's any relation there.
So, Kristen, I just want you to also be aware that any properties that have apartments or anything's residential will, as soon as they're ready to sell, will immediately go into the COPA program.
That's right. That's good, right? So
Exactly good.
That's terrific, right?
So
residential,
if there's any kind of preparation or planning,
right,
for that. So
good reminder. Thank you. I know that there were some business owners that were interested in the opportunity to buy like a condo in their building. So that is one way that those purchases could be financed.
That's right.
Yep.
Tons of money available for it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Kristen, could we get a couple of quick updates, one on the supervisorial campaign and the other on how the merchants are holding on the Upper Haight?
It's just about 9 o'clock, and we've had a merchant update in the email, and I don't think we're going to talk about the supervisor race because of the issues about our status. So
I was going to just say the same thing. I don't think we should talk about the supervisor's race on this call, but
there is a merchants update in the current newsletter too. But yeah, so I would like to formally close the meeting with a lot of thanks to all those who've been participating in it, and for our guests and for Jen as a guest too. And if anybody wants to stay on for a few moments to chat about the problems that we were having at the beginning of the meeting, you're welcome to do so, but everybody else, feel free to sign off. And thanks, and work on the issues that you care about. Get out there, phone bank, whatever, but take care of yourself too. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tess.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jen.
Nice to see you. Bye, y'all.
He's got a cat.
I'm curious what the issues were. Was it primarily related to getting the meeting started, or?
Oh wait, you got a few other people.
We've got a few people to
hop off.
Sign off. So there's a couple of call-ins. Yeah, feel free to hang up now or log off.
Probably not there. Oh, that's Trisha.
The administrator should be able to also book them.
I have to leave.
Okay, I think we're done now. Okay. Well, Bruce, you must have had a heck of a day if you just got home a few minutes about 7 tonight.
Yeah, I had contacted David earlier, and I asked him if he could. I was still on the road, and if he could start the meeting without me. And then when I went to log into the meeting, I was like, "Where is everybody?" And it turns out that for some reason Zoom had duplicated the meetings like 4 times, and they were all different links.
Oh no.
So when I logged into one of them, it basically locked up the whole thing. And so then I logged off, and then I went and saw, wait a minute, this is the wrong meeting number. I went back to the original email that Richard sent out, and then logged in and then saw that everybody was there. So that's what happened. That happened to my office twice in the past 2 weeks. And so this is, Zoom constantly changing and updating their system, and they got hiccups.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Well, I was especially puzzled by, apparently I was able to log in at some point in the first 10 minutes, and people could see and hear me, but I could not see or anybody. I could only hear people, and I had no controls at the bottom of the screen. So that was just an extra little wrinkle.
You need to, sometimes the app gets a hiccup. You got to log off, shut down the app, restart the app.
Well, I did that about 6 times tonight.
Oh, really? Oh,
I used the link that you sent us, that was a hot link, and I used the one that was from the voice, and I used the one in the voice about 4 times.
So one thing that, sorry, I was just going to say one thing that my father's currently on a book tour right now, and one thing I did with him is I actually set up 3 different devices for him with Zoom. So that way, if if his internet fails, then he's got it also on his cell phone, like that kind of thing. So I mean, to the extent that you have other devices, you might consider setting up the Zoom login and app on different devices so that you can switch over to a different device if one device is failing. Because I noticed when I set him up for laptop, phone, iPad, the apps are different. The interface of the app looks different and it acts differently.
Yeah,
they're clearly developed by different developers. So the app functionality is different depending on what device you're on.
Well, I guess we have Zoom on 2 computers here, and I think I got it on my cell phone, but I'll double check on that. Thanks for the tip.
No problem.
Yeah, I just feel like this is so frustrating. We thought that we were going to get to the gold standard by using Zoom, and we've been trying all these different video conferencing things. And Bruce has put on a lot of labor on that, of trying different formats, and they all have different protocols and stuff.
So
I think Zoom is pretty reliable. I mean,
it is.
I hear what Bruce is saying about Zoom creating a bunch of updates. Like they just recently changed it so that you had to have a password or a waiting room, that kind of stuff. So they're making updates probably because of, user experience.
Yeah, well, I started to try to log in at 10 to 7. And so.
Okay, well.
But that, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what, as far as connection issues, that's nothing that any of us can do anything about. That's all in their control. And, sometimes it's a connection from your internet service provider into the Zoom network. It could be that,
Yeah, well, this particular machine is our Ubuntu Linux machine, and my other one is a regular old
PC
with Firefox. But I mean, I don't know even what to say, but yeah.
It's nothing to do with that. I use Ubuntu in my office. It's not really a problem.
It's all these layers and stuff. Anyway, thank you, Bruce, and I want to thank the team too for picking up when I was trying to get in, and I was talking, into the air, but folks picked it up and got the guests going, and that was great. And so we kept it going. So thank you, team, Richard, Kristen, Bruce.
Hey, Richard, do you have a adjustable focus on your camera?
No, am I out of focus?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's dirty. Maybe the lens is dirty. I don't know.
Very slightly. Yeah.
Either that or there's a lot of fuzz on your face.
That too.
Actually, your cabinet looks in sharper focus.
That's true.
Yeah, maybe I'm just too close to the camera.
Okay. Well, fight the good fight.
Okay, folks.
Thank you all.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Kristen.
No problem. Thank
Richard.
you.
Night.
Have a good weekend.
Wait.
Oh, hey, do you guys want me to invite that consultant to the next board meeting?
I forget why.
He's the livable city guy that's conducting a survey about shopping behaviors on Haight Street.
Isn't that Tom Radulovich's organization?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, it's Tom. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe for 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So maybe at the start of the meeting?
Yeah, early-ish.
Like 7:15, I'll tell him.
Okay.
Okay.
Remind me or when we do the agenda.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll try to email that survey to our list tomorrow.
Yeah, we should get that
Thank
out.
you. That would be great. Yeah. Make suggestions, Richard, on what they might include as desirable businesses, including credit union, pharmacy, like neighborhood serving stuff.
Yeah, before you send it out, I'll try to send you the list from some research that was done about, every neighborhood should have these services.
Yeah, let's add that in.
That sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you all. Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Night.
Get that kitty for